From India's Machu Dam, where an unexpected monsoon burst turned a reservoir into a deadly torrent, to California's St. Francis Dam, whose midnight collapse sent billions of gallons racing to the sea, history warns how fast safety can vanish. We passed the still-standing Vajont Dam in Italy, where a mountain slid into its lake with explosive force, and revisit the Johnstown Flood, when the South Fork Dam unleashed 20 million tons of water on a sleeping city. Wartime turned Germany's Eder and Möhne dams into deliberate targets, while Ukraine's Kakhovka Dam showed how modern conflict can weaponize water itself. In Los Angeles, the Baldwin Hills Dam burst above a busy neighborhood, and in Libya, the Derna dams collapsed under a storm so fierce, entire districts were swept into the sea. China's twin catastrophes at Shimantan and finally Banqiao, where waves raced at highway speed and deaths reached into the hundreds of thousands, stand as the ultimate reminders that even the mightiest engineering can fail in an instant. We begin in India, where the Machu Dam in the western state of Gujarat collapsed on August 11, 1979. Built across the Machu River near the industrial town of Morbi, it was meant to tame fierce monsoon floods and support agriculture and industry. But an extraordinary monsoon deluge that summer brought rainfall far beyond design expectations. As the swollen reservoir overtopped the earthen embankments, the dam's weakest flanks gave way. Within minutes, a towering wall of muddy water swept through Morbi. Streets turned to raging rivers. Houses, factories, and lives were erased in a single night. Official counts cite around 1,800 deaths, but many researchers believe the true toll may exceed 20,000 because entire families were carried away and never found. Investigators later pointed to inadequate spillways, poor maintenance, and a fatal underestimation of extreme weather risk, failures that still haunt Indian dam safety policy. Half a world away, in California's Santa Clarita Valley, another tragic lesson unfolded decades earlier. Shortly before midnight on March 12, 1928, the St. Francis Dam suddenly collapsed. Designed as an arch-gravity structure by the famed water engineer William Mulholland, the dam stored water for a growing Los Angeles. But the site concealed treacherous geology, weak schist, red conglomerate, and remnants of ancient landslides. Without warning, 12.4 billion gallons of water roared down the canyon, a flood wave initially more than 40 meters high. Farmhouses, bridges, and entire communities vanished as the water raced 87 kilometers to the Pacific Ocean in under 6 hours. The official death toll stands around 431, though uncounted migrant workers may have raised it higher. Public outrage ended Mulholland's career and led to sweeping reforms in U.S. dam inspection and geological surveying. Italy's Vajont disaster of October 9, 1963, shows how a dam can fail even when its concrete walls remain intact. Rising elegantly to 262 meters in a narrow alpine gorge, the Vajont Dam was then one of the tallest in the world. But the steep mountain slopes surrounding its reservoir were unstable. Despite warning signs, cracks, small landslides, ominous earth movements, a massive 260 million cubic meter chunk of Mount Tauk suddenly plunged into the reservoir one night. The displacement generated a wave higher than the dam itself. Water overtopped the wall and thundered into the valley, annihilating the town of Longarone and several villages. Nearly 2,000 people died in minutes, even though the dam structure survived. Vajont remains a classic example of how overlooking geological context can turn engineering pride into a nightmare. Traveling back further, we meet the notorious Johnstown Flood of May 31, 1889. The South Fork Dam in Pennsylvania had been a private fishing club's neglected possession. Owners had lowered the crest and allowed drainage pipes to rust shut. After days of torrential rain, the earthen embankment gave way. 20 million tons of water surged down the valley toward Johnstown, smashing houses and rail cars and piling debris 12 meters high. A fire ignited in the wreckage, adding an infernal, sometimes dams fail not by accident, but by design. During World War II, Britain's Royal Air Force launched Operation Chastise against Germany's industrial Ruhr Valley. In the early hours of May 17, 1943, specially developed bouncing bombs breached the Möhne and Eder dams. Enormous torrents, some waves 12 meters high, raced downriver, flooding towns and factories. The attack killed between 1,600 and 2,000 people, including many forced laborers, and temporarily disrupted German war production. Strategically, the effect was limited, but the human cost was immense. This episode demonstrates how dams, once built, can become targets in the theater of war, their destruction magnifying the suffering of civilians. The 21st century has not been free of such tragedies. On June 6, 2023, the massive Kakhovka Dam on the Dnipro River in southern Ukraine was deliberately destroyed amid the ongoing war. The blast unleashed an estimated 18 cubic kilometers of water, inundating 80 settlements and displacing tens of thousands of people. Official counts list at least 52 deaths, but the real number is likely far higher, hidden by conflict and the chaos of evacuation. Beyond immediate flooding, the breach drained a reservoir that supplied drinking water and cooled the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, creating long-term environmental and security risks. Kakhovka shows how modern conflicts can transform critical infrastructure into weapons, with civilians bearing the brunt. Another stark mid-century lesson came from Los Angeles itself. On December 14, 1963, the Baldwin Hills Reservoir, an earthen dam perched above a dense residential district, suddenly burst. Seepage along an active fault line had undermined the foundation. In minutes, a raging flood swept through the neighborhood, destroying homes and killing 11 people. Though small compared to other disasters, Baldwin Hills forced engineers and planners worldwide to factor seismic risk and hidden ground movement into every stage of dam design, construction, and maintenance. Equally recent and far deadlier was the tragedy that struck the Libyan city of Derna on September 10, 2023. After days of unprecedented rain from Storm Daniel, a rare Mediterranean cyclone, 2 upstream dams collapsed, forming a 7-meter-high torrent that erased entire districts and swept thousands of people into the sea. Confirmed deaths exceed 4,000, and total casualties, including the missing, may surpass 10,000. Years of neglected maintenance and political turmoil left the structures vulnerable. Derna has become one of the deadliest dam disasters of the modern era, and a sobering warning of how climate-driven storms and aging infrastructure can combine to catastrophic effect. 2 interconnected failures in China represent the very worst cases on record. During the night of August 8, 1975, Typhoon Nina stalled over Henan province, unloading rain far beyond anything the region's dams were designed to withstand. The Shimantan Dam, meant to be part of a robust flood control network, was overwhelmed. When it failed, more than 60 smaller dams downstream collapsed in a devastating cascade. Estimates suggest between 100,000 and 171,000 people died from immediate flooding, famine, and disease in the days that followed. Shimantan's failure set the stage for an even greater calamity just downstream. At the top of the grim list stands the Banqiao Dam, once celebrated as an engineering triumph of the People's Republic of China. Built to withstand what designers called a once-in-a-thousand-years flood, Banqiao could not cope with the deluge Typhoon Nina delivered, a storm so intense it was more like a once-in-2,000-years event. In the pre-dawn darkness of August 8, 1975, the dam burst, releasing 701 million cubic meters of water in a roaring surge that traveled up to 50 kilometers an hour. Waves up to 7 meters high tore across the plains, flattening villages and drowning fields. More than 10 million people were affected, roughly 5 million homes collapsed. Official reports, long kept secret, put the death toll at 85,000 to 100,000 from drowning alone, while later estimates, including famine and disease, climb as high as 240,000. Banqiao remains the deadliest dam disaster ever documented. Looking across these 10 tragedies, patterns emerge. Extreme weather, whether the slow build of monsoon rains or the sudden violence of a cyclone, was the immediate trigger in many cases, from Banqiao and Shimantan to Machu Picchu and Derna. But weather alone doesn't tell the whole story. Hidden geological weaknesses undermine St. Francis, Vajont, and Baldwin Hills. Negligence and poor maintenance plagued Johnstown and Derna, while wartime sabotage defined Eder, Möhne, and Kakhovka. In nearly every case, delayed warnings or suppressed information magnified the human toll. Despite their horror, these disasters have forced progress. After Johnstown, the United States began modernizing dam safety laws. Vajont transformed geological risk assessment. Banqiao led to vast upgrades in Chinese flood control philosophy and emergency response. Modern dams are now monitored by sensors, satellite imagery, and strict inspection regimes. Yet as climate change drives more intense storms, and as many mid-century dams age beyond their planned lifespans, the fundamental risks remain. These 10 stories remind us that no structure is infallible. Each dam once symbolized hope, electric power, fertile fields, secure cities. But when design assumptions proved too optimistic or maintenance lagged, the very force they harnessed became an unstoppable destroyer. From the mountains of China to the deserts of Libya, from industrial Europe to the heart of America, the world has learned these lessons in water and grief. The challenge now is to remember them, to invest in maintenance, demand transparency, and design for a changing climate, so that the rivers we depend on never again turn so swiftly against us.